Look, I need to get this off my chest. My therapist says journaling helps, but honestly, this feels too big, too dark, for a leather-bound diary. Maybe typing it out anonymously into the void is better. Safer. Because what I did, what grandmother Jenny orchestrated, it wasn't just teaching a lesson. It was demolition. Total reputational annihilation. And yeah, I planned every damn step. Every single glorious, catastrophic step. Let me set the scene. Me, grandmother Jenny, widowed, comfortable, very comfortable, thanks to Arthur's shrewd investments and a lifetime of careful, quiet living. My legacy, 2 sons, one, bless him, turned out decent, hardworking, raised his kids right. The other, my eldest, Richard, spoiled rotten by his father, then proceeded to do the exact same thing to his 3 terrors, Chloe, Preston, and Tyler. These weren't just entitled brats. They were Olympians of arrogance, grandmasters of greed. Every Christmas, birthday, random Tuesday. It was a performance art piece of disdain wrapped in designer labels. Gifts I meticulously chose, met with sneers if they weren't the exact latest gadget or obscenely priced handbag. Visits, they'd sprawl on my antique furniture, complaining about the Wi-Fi speed or the lack of imported sparkling water, texting furiously while I tried to ask about their lives. Their conversations revolved around exclusive clubs, influencer drama, and whose parents were funding the most extravagant gap year. Their sense of entitlement wasn't just loud, it was a physical presence, thick and suffocating like cheap perfume. Richard and his vapid wife, Cynthia, useless, encouraged it, even. They're just high-spirited. Mother, Richard would simper, while Cynthia nodded, her face tight from too much Botox. They deserve the best after all their hard work. Hard work. Chloe dropped out of 3 colleges because the dorms were substandard. Preston got fired from his internship for demanding his own parking space and calling the CEO dude. Tyler's main achievement was accumulating a staggering number of speeding tickets Daddy kept making disappear. The final straw came last Thanksgiving. They descended like locusts. Chloe complained the organic, heritage breed turkey was too gamey. Preston loudly debated the resale value of my heirloom silver while using it. Tyler spilled red wine on my 19th century Persian rug and just laughed, saying, "Relax, Grams, Dad'll buy you a new one." Richard chuckled indulgently. Cynthia patted my hand with icy fingers. "Don't be upset, Jenny. They're young. They don't understand the value of things." Oh, they understood value all right. The value of my money. The trust funds Arthur set up, waiting for them like fruit they felt entitled to pluck whenever they wished. Sitting there, watching them devour the meal my housekeeper, Maria, who they never bothered to thank, had slaved over. Something inside me, something cold and hard and patient, finally snapped. They didn't understand value. Fine. It'd give them a masterclass, a grand tour, not of enlightenment, but of exquisite, irreversible ruin. The idea bloomed, dark and intricate, like a poisonous orchid. I wouldn't just cut them off. That was too easy. They'd whine. Richard would bail them out. And they'd learn nothing except that Grandma was a mean old witch. No, I needed something comprehensive, something that would follow them, haunt them, strip them bare not just financially, but socially, reputationally. A global odyssey of humiliation, meticulously crafted by their dear old Grams. I called it the Grand Tour Trap, and I became its architect. Phase 1, the bait. I waited until Easter brunch, let them complain about the mimosa glasses not being chilled enough. Then, with a sigh that sounded convincingly weary, I dropped the bomb. "You know," I said, stirring my tea, "Arthur and I always dreamed of taking the grandchildren on a grand tour, seeing the world, experiencing different cultures." I let the wistfulness hang in the air. 3 pairs of bored, entitled eyes flickered towards me, suddenly alert. Money radar engaged. With everything well, I'm not getting any younger. And you 3, you seem so restless, stuck in a rut. The rut of spending trust fund dividends. But semantics. Chloe perked up first. A grand tour. Like Europe. Europe. I nodded sagely, and beyond. The world. First class, naturally. The finest hotels. Exclusive experiences. A proper cultural immersion. I emphasized finest and exclusive. Saw the greed ignite in Preston's eyes. Tyler actually put his phone down. Arthur left provisions. I lied smoothly. A special travel fund. For broadening horizons. I think it's time. The feeding frenzy was predictable. How long? Preston demanded, already mentally spending it. 6 months, I said. A true circumnavigation. Paris, Marrakech, Mumbai, Bangkok, Tokyo, Sydney, Rio, New York to finish. A proper whirlwind. 6 months. Epic. Tyler whooped. First class. Like actual first class suites. Chloe clarified. Nose wrinkled, as if considering slumming it in business. Only the best for my darlings, I cooed, the endearment like ash in my mouth. All expenses paid. Hotels, transport, meals, experiences, a generous per diem for incidentals. The incidentals were crucial. The fuel for their coming inferno. Richard beamed. Mother. That's incredibly generous. Generous. Cynthia gushed. It's life-changing. Think of the exposure. The networking. Her mind was already on potential Instagrammable moments, and rich husbands Chloe might snag. The details were settled with dizzying speed. They wanted luxury, exclusivity, and zero responsibility. Perfect. I hired a top-tier travel agency, the kind that caters to billionaires and royalty. MY instructions were specific. Book the most visible, reputation-sensitive establishments. Ensure maximum exposure. And crucially, I handled all the special surprise experiences directly. The agency was delighted I was a dream client, paying up front without question. Little did they know they were booking passage on the SS Catastrophe. My real work began in the shadows. Decades of managing Arthur's complex affairs, navigating social labyrinths, and quietly observing human nature had honed my skills. I had resources, contacts, and, crucially, a deep, burning resentment that provided endless focus. I became a spider, weaving a global web. My tools, discreet private investigators, the kind who ask no questions, a very talented and expensive forger whose discretion was legendary, burner phones, untraceable cryptocurrency payments, and a network of facilitators acquired through layers of intermediaries in each target country. People skilled in creating plausible chaos. The plan was multi-layered for each destination. The setup, an irresistible, exclusive, but inherently risky or reputation-sensitive experience tailored to their specific vices: Chloe's vanity and social climbing, Preston's arrogance and tech obsession, Tyler's recklessness and substance inclinations. The trigger, a meticulously planned accident, legal entanglement, or scandalous exposure directly resulting from the setup, designed to be public, humiliating, and expensive. The drain, the subsequent financial hemorrhage, astronomical legal fees, fines, bribes arranged to be extortionate, destroyed property bills, emergency travel costs, all meticulously funneled to drain their individual trust funds, which I, as trustee, had structured to be accessible only for this trip under emergency clauses I'd had my lawyer quietly insert years ago. The per diem, a tantalizing trap to fund their initial missteps. The fallout, guaranteed social media virality, thanks to their own incessant posting and my anonymous tips to gossip sites, permanent digital scars, and reputations left in smoking ruins. The stage was set. The actors, blissfully ignorant and already posting smug grantor blessgrams the bus pre-departure content, boarded their first-class flight to Paris. The curtain was about to rise on Act 1, City of Lights, City of Fallen Idols. Paris, haute couture, haute scandal. They hit Paris like a tornado of tastelessness. Chloe demanded a suite at the Ritz overlooking Place Vendôme. Preston needed the latest VR headset delivered immediately. Tyler started ordering vintage Dom Prignan by the crate. My first surprise arrived via a beautifully calligraphed invitation to an exclusive, invite-only fitting at a legendary, notoriously temperamental haute couture house. Chloe practically vibrated with excitement. This was her moment. access mere money couldn't buy. It arranged it through a contact a disgruntled former assistant paid handsomely, who guaranteed Chloe could try on and be photographed in a specific, iconic gown from the archive, a priceless piece worn by a screen legend. The catch: it was incredibly fragile, and the head seamstress, Madame Dubois, was a fierce guardian of the house's legacy, known for her volcanic temper and disdain for nouveau-rich interlopers. The facilitator's job was simple: ensure Madame Dubois received an anonymous tip moments before Chloe's arrival, detailing Chloe's online history of mocking French fashion, calling classic designs dowdy, and her recent social media post bragging about conquering the Paris fashion scene. Plant the seed of outrage, then subtly weaken a single, crucial seam on the priceless gown's shoulder strap, just enough to give way under slight pressure. The scene unfolded like a dark comedy. Chloe, preening before the cameras her assistant, a hired influencer it ensured was there, slipped into the fragile gown. Madame Dubois, already simmering from the anonymous dossier, watched hawk-like as Chloe struck a dramatic pose, twisting slightly for the camera. The weakened strap gave way, not dramatically, but with a horrifyingly delicate rear rip, a small tear, but in a priceless, historically significant garment. Madame Dubois erupted. The tirade was magnificent, a symphony of French fury echoing through the hushed salon. Security materialized. Chloe, initially stunned, then indignant, it was already weak. "This is a scam," only poured gasoline on the fire. Photos of her shocked face, the torn gown, Madame Dubois gesticulating wildly, were everywhere within minutes, leaked anonymously, of course. Couture catastrophe Americans of rich repartist trended globally. The fallout was instant and brutal. The fashion house slapped her with a lawsuit demanding $500,000 for restoration and reputational damage. The Ritz, embarrassed by the association, politely but firmly asked her to leave. Other luxury boutiques on the Rue Saint-Anne closed their doors to her. Her Instagram, once filled with curated perfection, was a war zone of ridicule, and the legal fees, draining her trust fund faster than Tyler could drain a minibar. My first sip of Schadenfreude was delicious. Paris, the city of love, had shown Chloe only scorn. Marrakech, souk secrets and stolen antiquities, needing a change of scene and fleeing the fashion police, they headed to Morocco. My next surprise awaited Preston. He fancied himself an intellectual, a collector of rare, exotic tech and artifacts, though his knowledge was Wikipedia deep. I arranged a private, after-hours tour of a renowned, but privately funded antiquities museum with a notoriously lax security consultant bribed. The curator, another facilitator, hinted at a backroom items too sensitive, to newly acquired, for public display. Preston's eyes gleamed with the thrill of the forbiddance. Among these unregistered acquisitions was a small, exquisitely carved Phoenician amulet. The curator, with practiced regret, explained it couldn't possibly be sold, but perhaps, for a true connoisseur, a private viewing photo. Preston, desperate to one-up his siblings and boast online, couldn't resist pocketing it. Just for a closer look later, he told himself. The facilitator's role: ensure the museum's actual head of security, unaware of the setup, received an anonymous tip about a planned theft during the private tour. Plant the amulet deep in Preston's camera bag after head nervously slipped it in his pocket. The security head, furious and under pressure, conducted a very public, very humiliating bag search right in the bustling Gemar LFNA square as they left. Finding the amulet was a spectacle. Preston's protests of being set up fell on deaf ears. Photos of him, pale and sweating, surrounded by stern guards, made international news. Souk swindler Marrakech materialized. Moroccan antiquities laws are no joke. Preston faced serious charges. Detention was brief but terrifying. The bribes demanded by various officials to avoid a lengthy trial and prison time were astronomical. Richard screamed down the phone, demanding I fix it. I played the frantic, helpless grandmother, wiring emergency funds from Preston's trust fund to pay the exorbitant fines and legal fees arranged by my local facilitator, who took a hefty cut. Naturally, by the time Preston was released, banned from Morocco for life, his trust fund was significantly lighter, and his reputation as a privileged thief was cemented. The desert heat wasn't the only thing making him sweat. Mumbai, holy cows and social media suicide, India, was a shock to their entitled systems. The noise, the crowds, the sheer vitality overwhelmed them. Tyler, perpetually bored and chemically enhanced, was the perfect mark. My surprise was an invitation to an ultra-exclusive, notoriously decadent rooftop party in South Mumbai, frequented by Bollywood's wildest and richest. The facilitator ensured Tyler had access to a specific, potent local concoction, a mix guaranteed to lower inhibitions and induce stupidity, disguised as an elite welcome drink. He also ensured a sacred cow, adorned with marigolds, was being walked near the building entrance later that night. Tyler, fueled by the spiked drink and his own recklessness, decided it would be hilarious to take a selfie riding the sacred cow. His drunken attempts, captured by the party's paparazzi, tipped off anonymously, were grotesque. He stumbled, pulled at the cow's decorations, and generally disrespected the animal and the handler. The photos and video went nuclear. Sacrilege selfie Mumbai moron, respect the cow, exploded across Indian social media. A firestorm of national outrage. Religious groups protested. Police complaints were filed. The party organizers, facing backlash, threw Tyler under the bus, claiming he gatecrashed. The fallout was immediate deportation and another massive drain on Tyler's trust fund for legal defense, fines, and compensation to the cow's owner, another facilitator. But the real damage was global. Companies associated with Richard's business distanced themselves. Tyler became an international symbol of entitled Western disrespect. His social media was a graveyard of hate. Chloe and Preston, mortified by association, couldn't ditch him fast enough, but the stain was on them all. The vibrant colors of India were forever tainted by the neon glare of infamy. Bangkok, elephants, ethics, and exploitation, seeking respite or perhaps just cheaper thrills, they headed to Thailand. Chloe, desperate to rehab her image after Paris, latched onto the idea of ethical tourism. Perfect. My surprise was a private, sanctuary-approved elephant experience far from the tourist traps. This sanctuary, however, was a carefully constructed facade by my facilitators. The kind mahouts were actors. The elephants, while not actively abused for the experience, were essentially rented props. Hidden cameras were everywhere. The facilitator's job was twofold. One, ensure Chloe was encouraged to post endlessly about her deep connection with the elephants, her ethical choice, and how she was raising awareness. Two, simultaneously leak the real setup contracts, showing the elephants were leased from a dubious source, staged photos of the mahouts looking bored or impatient off camera, and evidence of the hefty payment it made framed as Chloe's payment to the fake sanctuary operator. They leaked it to a hard-hitting international animal rights organization known for aggressive exports. The ambush was devastating. Just as Chloe's ethical elephant compassion glow posts peaked, the organization dropped their bombshell report, Influencer's Sanctuary Sham, the exploitation behind the hashtag. Her footage was spliced with the damning evidence. News outlets worldwide picked it up. Elephant exploiter Clothacon trended. Brands dropped her sponsorship deals instantly. She was eviscerated online, called a hypocrite and a fraud. The sanctuary operator vanished with the money. My facilitator, mission accomplished. Chloe's attempts at apologies sounded hollow and desperate. Her trust fund bled millions to crisis PR firms who couldn't stem the tide. The land of smiles showed Chloe only snarls. Tokyo, tech hub. Hacked hubris Preston, still smarting from Morocco, sought solace in Japan's tech paradise. His arrogance hadn't diminished, it just found a new target. My surprise was access to a beta testing event for a revolutionary, unreleased augmented reality system from a major tech conglomerate. This access, arranged through a bribed mid-level manager facilitator, required signing a draconian NDA. Preston, of course, barely skimmed it. The facilitator also provided him with a special demo unit identical to the others, but equipped with hidden malware designed to slowly siphon data and, crucially, had its security protocols subtly weakened. Preston, predictably, couldn't resist bragging at an exclusive robot bar in Roppongi. Fueled by expensive sake, he boasted loudly to a table of international tech journalists conveniently placed there by another facilitator about the mind-blowing tech he was testing, dropping specifics he shouldn't have known. Worse, he connected his demo unit to the bar's insecure Wi-Fi to show off a non-classified feature. The malware activated, creating a backdoor. Within hours, sensitive, though not catastrophic, internal data from the beta system started leaking onto niche tech forums. The source was traced back to the Roppongi Wi-Fi access point and Preston's compromised device. The Japanese take data security and ENDOS extremely seriously. Preston was arrested at his luxury hotel at dawn. The charges: industrial espionage and violation of the Secret Act. The scandal rocked the tech world. Gaijin hacker Betabet Trail Tokyo Tech trended. Richard was apoplectic. The conglomerate demanded astronomical damages. Preston's trust fund hemorrhaged funds for a team of high-powered and highly expensive international lawyers. He spent weeks in a Japanese detention center, a terrifying experience for a spoiled young man to deference. His reputation as a tech enthusiast was obliterated, replaced by security risk and corporate spy. The neon lights of Tokyo illuminated his utter disgrace. Sydney, wildlife warriors gone wild. Australia was supposed to be sun, surf, and sanctuary. Tyler, perpetually the loose cannon, was reeling but unrepentant. My surprise tapped into his remaining vices, adrenaline and substances. I arranged a private, extreme wildlife tour in the outback with a renegade guide, facilitator. The promise: getting up close and personal with dangerous animals, crocodiles, snakes, spiders, far from the safety of tourist parks. The facilitator ensured Tyler had access to performance enhancers, basically strong stimulants, to heighten the experience. The climax was a boat trip on a croc-infested river. The facilitator, subtly egging Tyler on, suggested a real Aussie dare, dangling a piece of meat over the side to lure a croc for a close-up photo. Tyler, wired and desperate to prove himself after the Mumbai disaster, agreed. He leaned far out, meat in hand. The facilitator, positioned behind him, gave a slight, disguised nudge just as a large saltwater crocodile lunged. Tyler didn't fall in, but he dropped the meat and his expensive, brand new phone into the murky water right next to the snapping jaws. In his panic and stimulant-fueled rage, he screamed obscenities and hurled a metal water bottle at the crocodile, missing wildly but causing a huge splash and commotion. Unbeknownst to Tyler, the whole scene was captured by a wildlife conservationist team hidden downstream, monitoring croc activity, tipped off anonymously about disturbance in the area. The footage: Tyler's reckless dangling, the bottle throw, his profanity-laced tirade against the animal was dynamite. Leaked to Australian media, it sparked national fury. Yankiabo Crocidiate Respectworld went viral. Parks authorities fined him heavily for interfering with wildlife and reckless behavior. His visa status was reviewed. The expensive phone, lost to a crocodile, was just the cherry on top. His trust fund coughed up yet another fortune for fines, and the inevitable lawsuit from the facilitator-run tour company for damage to equipment and reputation. Australia's rugged beauty framed Tyler's spectacular idiocy for the world to see. Rio, Carnival of Chaos Brazil, was carnival time. A melting pot of chaos perfect for the grand finale of their individual downfalls. Chloe, Preston, and Tyler were shells of their former arrogant selves, but still clinging to shreds of entitlement, deeply suspicious of each other and the world. My final surprises hit them simultaneously, exploiting their fractured dynamic. For Chloe, an invite to an ultra-VIP carnival ball hosted by a reclusive, notoriously eco-conscious billionaire, a facade created by facilitators. The dress code, sustainable glamour. My facilitator provided her with a stunning gown, allegedly made by an indigenous cooperative using recycled materials, perfect for her desperate attempt at an eco-redemption arc. Hidden within the delicate beadwork, however, was a minuscule amount of a potent, illegal stimulant powder, expertly sewn into seams where it could easily tear and leak. During the crowded, chaotic ball, amidst dancing and sweating, the beadwork snagged. A tiny plume of powder was caught on camera by a rival socialite, another facilitator. Security, tipped off anonymously, descended. Chloe, publicly accused of smuggling drugs into a high-profile eco-event during Carnival, was detained. The scandal was nuclear. Carnival Coke Eco Hypocrite Rye redemption fail burned across the globe. Her trust fund made its final, gasping withdrawals for Brazilian lawyers and bail. Her reputation was now irredeemable toxic waste. For Preston, still paranoid after Tokyo, he was obsessed with digital security. My facilitator, posing as a fellow tech victim at a luxury hotel bar, commiserated and offered a solution, a contact who could provide an untraceable, encrypted satellite phone for emergencies. Preston, desperate for a lifeline Richard couldn't monitor. The phone, of course, was preloaded with malware and came with a hefty price tag paid from his dwindling trust fund. More crucially, it was a model band in Brazil and identical to ones used by a known drug cartel for communications. Police, acting on an anonymous tip about cartel activity at his hotel, raided his room. Finding the banned phone was enough. Preston was arrested again. Cartel Connect Tector restrictions. His remaining trust fund vanished into the abyss of Brazilian legal fees. Any lingering credibility was annihilated. For Tyler, my simplest ploy, the facilitator, playing on his bruised ego and need for oblivion, introduced him to a private carnival after party. The drinks flowed freely, laced with a powerful hallucinogen. Tyler, completely out of his mind, wandered into a favela, shouting incoherently and trying to befriend heavily armed gang members who did not appreciate the intrusion. The ensuing chaos, captured on shaky cell phone footage leaked anonymously, showed Tyler being chased, beaten not severely, but enough, and stripped of his designer clothes before police intervened. Favorable Carnival casualty Tyler Trubliaton. Humiliation complete. Medical bills, more legal fees, another massive drain. He was a global laughingstock, a cautionary tale of stupidity. Rio, the city of celebration, became their collective funeral pyre. Their trust funds, emptied, utterly, completely drained. The money was gone, vanished into a labyrinth of shell companies and facilitator fees, with a significant portion quietly funneled into charities. Arthur and I had always supported environmental causes, arts education, animal welfare, poetic justice, I felt. New York, the grand finale exposure bruised, broke and broken. They limped into New York City, their final destination. The contrast was cruel. They were shadows, jumping at shadows, paranoid shells. Richard and Cynthia met them, pale and furious, the facade of indulgent parenting finally shattered by the financial and reputational tsunami. The media circus followed them. Paparazzi shouted questions about lawsuits, scandals, empty trust funds. My final move wasn't financial. It was psychological. Absolute annihilation. I invited them, Richard and Cynthia, to a private room at the plaza for a debrief. They arrived expecting pleas for forgiveness, promises of help. What they got was grandmother Jenny, calm, collected, sipping tea. I didn't scream. I didn't gloat overtly. I simply laid it out, coldly, precisely, like reading a financial report. I recounted their behavior over the years, the entitlement, the disrespect, the sheer, unadulterated greed. Then, I detailed the grand tour, not the sights they saw, but the mechanisms. Paris, Marrakech, Mumbai, Bangkok, Tokyo, Sydney, Rio. I named names the cities, not the facilitators. I described the setups, the bribes, the planted evidence, the anonymous tips, the drained accounts. I showed them copies of the final trust fund statement, zero balances. The silence was absolute, thick with disbelief, then dawning horror, then white-hot rage. You witch, Richard finally choked out, face purple. You ruined them. You ruined us. No, Richard, I said, my voice like ice. You ruined them. With your indulgence, your excuses, your belief that money absolved all sins. I merely accelerated the consequences. I showed them the world. And the world showed them exactly what they were: shallow, selfish, destructive parasites. Now the whole world knows it too. Their reputations are ash. Their money is gone. And you, I looked at Richard and Cynthia. You enabled this. Your precious social standing. It's tied to them now. Enjoy the fallout. Chloe was sobbing hysterically. Preston stared blankly at the wall, shattered. Tyler looked like he wanted to vomit. Cynthia fainted. Richard lunged, but the discreet security he'd hired stepped in. I stood up. The travel fund is exhausted. Your trust funds are closed. I suggest you find jobs. You might discover what value actually means. I walked out, leaving them in the wreckage. Epilogue. That was 6 months ago. The lawsuits fly, they're suing me, of course. My lawyers, paid from my secure funds, not a trust, a confidant. The evidence of their behavior is overwhelming, proving my orchestration is nearly impossible. The facilitators are ghosts. The money is untraceable. Richard's business is floundering under the association. Cynthia's social circle evaporated. Chloe works as a low-level assistant at a fashion PR firm that took her on purely for the notoriety, treating her like dirt. Preston, facing extradition requests from Japan and Morocco, works tech support remotely, constantly looking over his shoulder. Tyler, -1 lawsuits for damages, in and out of rehab. Last seen busking poorly in Seattle. Do I feel guilty? Sometimes, in the quiet hours. The scale of it's monstrous. Arthur might be horrified. But then I remember the wine on the rug, the sneers, the utter lack of humanity. They were on a path to destroy themselves and everyone around them with their entitlement. I just curated the crash. I showed them the abyss, and they gleefully jumped in, believing their golden parachutes would open. They didn't. The world knows grandmother. Jenny financed the trip. They see me as either a vengeful harpy or a tragic figure exploited by monstrous grandchildren. Let them wonder. The truth, it's locked away, right here. And the peace in my beautifully quiet, undamaged house, it's absolute. I sip my tea, look at Arthur's portrait, and feel settled. The ledger, finally, feels balanced.